Probably ought to mute that. It's a chord for the theme song to the. Can I do a major key too? How about this one? To the song? Nope, that's not it. How about this one? That? That's almost a note. There's something. It's a song. It's a theme song for happy hour. And if I let's get this stupid thing started, shall we?
Is your bar looking a little ordinary? Is it lacking something awesome? Well, head out to your local liquor store and pick up something extraordinary. Grab a bottle of Old Humble Straight Whiskey or Old Humble Special Reserve. They're clean, smooth, easy drinking whiskeys that taste the way whiskey should taste. From humble beginnings to an extraordinary finish, Old Humble whiskeys are what your bar needs today. Walk tall, be awesome, and drink humble. Old Humble Straight Whiskey and Old Humble Special Reserve. Get yours today.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, I'm the Old Humble Guy. This is our special reserve, just what the ladies told you to pick up and add to your bar, one of the two. I do need to update that ad, though. Check this out. Oh, yeah, that sounds good, doesn't it? Cheers to y'all. We have had a very busy few days at the distillery. It has been a humdinger of a week, and I am exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. But it's going to be a fun week. It's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a fun week. We cap it off with the Texas Whiskey Fest on Saturday. Friday, we have the Don May Project returning to the Old Humble Distilling Company for our Friday nights live. Thursday, we have trivia with Lisa and Mrs. Lenny, Lisa's mom. I don't know if she's a Mrs. I just know that she's her mom. I don't know. But Mama Lenny, we'll call her Mama Lenny. She'll be on Thursday, probably joining Lisa for the show. Possibly, maybe not. I'm not sure. And then, of course, tonight we have our Philosophy Meets Whiskey show. I haven't checked the counter up above my head. What do we have? We have 548 subs as of right now. And when we hit 550, we're going to do a whiskey giveaway. So, hey, we only need 2 more subs. We could get 2 more subs tonight on the show, tonight. And then fireworks, fake sounds, and all that stuff. How'd you like the theme song to the show, right? That was something. I don't know what it was, but it was something. it was kind of shit, is what it was. Um, I will work on that. I haven't had a taste of my drink yet. Mm. Oh, damn, that is a delight. It's powerful. It's powerful, strong. So today we were spending all day working in the distillery, bottling up, finishing bottling up. So we did labeling, sealing bottles, labeling bottles, boxing bottles of Special Reserve for an order tomorrow. And then we finished the day. I did that on live stream. We were chatting. I don't remember what we chatted about. We chatted about a whole lot of stuff. It was over the course of 2 hours, broken into 2 different shows because I lost power when I was talking about flavored whiskeys. I remember talking about flavored whiskeys, and then I blew a fuse and lost power to my computer. So there was that. And then we started a second live stream to finish the show. And then I had to go eat lunch. And then I came back and I was labeling boxes and realized I needed more of my straight whiskey to finish my order. So I bottled up some more straight whiskey, labeled it up, Bottled it, sealed it, labeled it up. Another 7 cases worth of whiskey, which still puts us 5 boxes short of our order, but that'll be fine. I can make that adjustment. And cheers to chat. Welcome to the show. If this is your first time here, let me tell you what to expect. I'm going to give you a little update. I've just finished giving a little update on the distillery and what we're going to be doing this week. Culminating with Don May Project on Friday. Saturday, I go to Austin to do a show. Y'all don't get to participate in that show unless you're actually at the Texas Whiskey Fest. The Texas Whiskey Fest is a humdinger of a party. All of the Texas whiskey distillers get together, do a little show-off bit for some folks that come to the show and come to the festival. We get to do tastings, we get to do show-offs, get to show off what we're going to be doing next, upcoming tasty stuff that we'll have coming out of the distilleries. It's going to be a fun time. And I will have my lovely assistant, the Mrs. Old Humble Guy. I guess I'm Mr. Old Humble Gal, I guess is what I would be. I would be her Mr. and she's my Mrs. Doesn't matter. That's semantics. That's splitting hairs. She'll be joining me, which means we'll be spending the night in Austin, if you know what I mean. She's not watching the show. I can say stuff like that. She never watches the show. It's kind of funny. But so we give the updates for what we've done and what we're going to do. And then after about 15 or 20 minutes of that nonsense, we jump into the topic of the day. The topic of the day is, can liberty and privacy live without each other? Or does liberty require privacy? Two topics that have been bandied about ridiculous amount over the last couple of weeks. Everybody's talking about privacy. Everybody's talking about liberty. There is a certain sub-strain of political commentators that will not shut up about liberty, but they do not know what liberty means. And it is absolutely frustrating and absolutely infuriating, especially considering they don't want liberty for everybody. They just want liberty for a specific group of people. Meanwhile, privacy, which is commented on and referred to time and time again in our laws and in our Constitution, is ignored and dismissed completely. So we'll talk about those two concepts, philosophically talk about those two concepts. We're not going to talk about them in a legal sense. We're not going to talk about them in an academic sense. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an academic. I'm just a amateur philosopher, if you will. A little bit of a whiskey-fueled philosopher, but I'm not a drunken philosopher. I am a sober-minded philosopher. We think about things and we talk about things just like you would do at a bar, back when you would go to bars and talk about things in bars. Maybe not prop your feet up, but sit down in the bar stool, grab your drink, look at the guy next to you and go, so, how about them Ravens? Or, hey, have you read any good books lately? Or, just talk to perfect strangers. We're strangers, let's talk. Some of us are friends. By the time you get in the show, by the time you get out of this, show, hopefully we'll be at least acquaintances. You'll be a subscriber, possibly even, because we're at 548, and we have a whiskey giveaway. We have a whiskey giveaway at 500 subs. So there you go. See, Safety Doc's in the house. Welcome to the party, Safety Doc. I would love to talk about your book donation and your book, but you won't come on my show because of technical difficulties. Whenever you're ready. The door is, actually my door's right there, but we can do it by Zoom. I'm ready when you are. We'll talk about book donations library. We'll talk about the Humble Christmas Parade. We'll talk about AI. We'll talk about the transformative nature of automated cars in cities. We'll talk about all the stuff. Why is my Twidger app not functioning properly? I don't think this thing's on. This thing's not on. Because otherwise I'd put your chat up on the window, but this thing's not on. I'm going to close it and possibly open it again. I'm going to stop it, start it, see if that does it, connect it again. And also, to be completely 100% clear, Lisa has the book that is going to your library, or to my library. Lisa has that book. I have the one that is signed, and I'm keeping that one. And I gave her the one that I bought that isn't signed because she was waiting on it to show up from. No, she got it from a bookstore. She went to a bookstore. The bookstore ordered it, and then when they got it, it was like the wrong book or something like that. And so then she's like, "Fine." I'm like, "You read mine. Just give it back to me because it's going to the library." So she'll get that back to me when she's done reading it. It doesn't have any pictures in it, so I can't tell you how long it'll take her to read the book. It'll likely be a long time because she's, being a lawyer, she reads slow. There's my sign. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button, subscribe, do all the things. I'm just giving you shit, Safety Doc. I would love to have you on the show. I will talk as soon as I get the book back and get it from Lisa, and I call up the library and tell them that I want to donate the book. I'm going to talk about all the intricacies and politics that go into and around what is required to donate a book at a library in the city. Well, I don't know if it's in the city of Humboldt or in the county of Harris. I don't know if it's a county library or a city library. I think it's a I think it's a county library, but it's inside of city limits because it's right next door to our. It's not the city hall. It's the city uh, activity center. It's like our city, the Humble City Convention Center and Arena, where we have our Humble Rodeo. We used to do our Humble Rodeo at the high school stadium, but now we have an arena that's dedicated to the rodeo. And I'll add, they also do arena football in that arena. There's a Texas Arena Football League, and a Houston Jets is the team that plays in the Humble Civic Center Arena, and they are apparently a Mickey Mouse organization. A Mickey Mouse organization within a Mickey Mouse league. I can't say that about the league. I don't know for sure if it's a Mickey Mouse league, but it is. It's like the minor leagues of arena football, and the Houston Jets are. They were a barnstorming team last year. So this year they have a home arena in Humble, but the field that they're using was a field that was used by a different team in North Texas last year, and it's not. They don't have all the parts to it, so it's like just carpet, and like it's not tacked. I don't know. It's a mess. But hey, tickets are cheap if you want to go to the games. They're only like $20. So there you go. There you go. Old Humble Special Reserve, the official whiskey of a job well done. I have a new short out that I will have to share. Probably not tonight, but I will reformat it so that it is in a format that is for this size screen, so we can so I can share that. Let's talk about. It's 15 minutes into the show. It is now time to talk about the topic du jour, the topic at hand, the topic that we will be discussing tonight. Let's get that screen up one more time. What is it, boys and girls? Liberty and privacy. Does liberty require privacy, or can liberty and privacy operate independently of each other? Which is to say, can you lose your right to privacy and still have what you would call liberty, or vice versa? Can you lose your what you would call liberty and still maintain a right to privacy? I would argue, my argument, my suggestion, my initial theory, my hypothesis, what I've been thinking about today when thinking about this topic, is that they have to go hand in hand. And we'll come back to that. We'll put a pin in that. They have to go hand in hand. You can't have liberty without privacy. You can't have privacy without liberty. You have to have both. If you do not have one, you can't have the other. And if you do not have the other, you can't have the one. They are inextricably linked, tied at the waist, bound together forever and ever. Amen. But first, we'll come back to that. That's my null. That's the hypothesis. I'm going to try to discuss my way out of it and see if I can disprove or convince myself otherwise. Or chat, y'all come at me and convince me otherwise. And we'll get to all the chat in about 30 minutes. I think this should go about 30 minutes. Then we'll kick it over to the discussion, open forum discussion. All chats will be on screen. This will be wrong screen. This will be the screen that we use for chat on screen. Come on, get up there. Where's it at? Where is it at? Uh-oh. Where are you? There it is. This will be the chat on screen. There it is. See, all the chats will be on screen. That'll be the topic du jour. We will discuss it. So here we go. Let me think here. Let me open the discussion by first talking about what we consider to be liberty. Let's talk about liberty. Liberty is, according to, let's go with the definition, the proper definition of liberty, according to, what is this? Merriam-Webster. So, an accepted run-of-the-mill dictionary. Liberty is simply the state of being free. That's the number one definition, and you could unpack that on several different levels as well. The power to do as one pleases, the freedom from physical restraint, the freedom from arbitrary or despotic control. That's a key right there. Arbitrary is a very important word in that definition, as well as despotic, and then control. Arbitrary or despotic, and the positive enjoyment of various social, political, economic rights and privileges. Various. It doesn't define them. It doesn't say all. Certainly doesn't say all. And then, of course, here's a funny one. Here's a really funny one. The power of choice. Says it right there. Can you see that? There it is. The power of choice. Where is it? The power of choice compels you. Come on, show it. Power of choice. There it is. It's kind of fuzzy, but you can see it. The power of choice. I didn't make that up. Which is really funny because it's the people who scream and moan and bitch and cry about liberty, 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 liberty. They're the ones trying to literally take away the power of choice. A right of immunity enjoyed by prescription or by grant, i.e. privilege. Permission to go freely within specified limits. You have liberty of have liberty to go as you please within the beach house. That is kind of the description there. And then an action going beyond normal limits, like you've taken many liberties with the turn of phrase that you're trying to use. Foolish liberties with your health. Those sorts of... the movie takes many liberties with the actual events. And then a more arcane or more specific definition is a short authorized absence from naval duty. Duty is usually for less than 48 hours. So shore leave, shore liberty, I guess, is what it would be described as in that function, that feature. So there you go. So that's what they would consider to be liberty. And we can unpack some of those definitions, but basically it means the ability to do what you want to do. The ability to do what you want to do within certain limits. The ability to do what you want to do within the laws of the land. A lot of people throw around the idea of liberty like, I can do whatever I want. That's my liberty to do whatever I want. If I don't want to wear pants, I won't wear pants. If I don't want to wear a mask, I don't wear a mask. If I don't want to get a shot, I don't get a shot. If I don't want to, if I want to walk across that land, I can walk across that land. Well, nobody has that liberty. Nobody has that liberty. That liberty is not something that unless you live by yourself on a desert island or a deserted island. Unless you live by yourself, unless you're the only person in a society living by yourself, living alone, you do not have liberty to do whatever you want. You do not have liberty to just literally do whatever you want. There are always limits on what you're allowed to do. You cannot go burn down your neighbor's house. That is against, you can say, well, I don't want to burn down my neighbor. Yeah, fine. But if you did want to burn down your neighbor's house, if your neighbor was a dick and you were like, you know what, he's a dick, I'm going to burn down his house. Or I want his land. Well, you can't have his land, but I want it. So you don't have the liberty to just go take his land. You don't have the freedom to do it. You can't just go burn his house down, unless you control the police, like, the Hatfields and McCoys. That's secondary. You don't have that freedom to do that. You don't have the liberty to do that. You literally can't do whatever you want to do. And you can't just pass it off as, I don't want to do that. Because the argument can be made that if it weren't for the law, if it weren't for literal moral code against it that has been codified and written down for thousands of years, that we as people would want to do that. You can say, oh, I don't want to go have sex with his wife. Well, you know what? If people didn't want to go have sex with their wife, there wouldn't have been laws against it. There wouldn't have been like literal commandments from God saying don't do it. Like the fact that it had to be written down means that it was a natural thing that people wanted to do. We are socialized to not want to commit adultery, and that's a good thing. We probably should not be doing that. There should be some covenants that we hold sacred, and we do. We hold these covenants sacred. But we as a people do not have freedom to do whatever we want to do. However, in the privacy of our own home, what does privacy mean when it comes to the privacy of our own home? What juxtaposed from liberty of the freedom to do whatever we want to do within certain limits, specifically the law and social norms. Within certain limits, we can do whatever we want to do. I mean, hell, we even walk on the right side of hallways. Like, there's no lanes of traffic and hallways, but we, as normal people, socialized human beings in the United States, we walk on the right side of the highway. There's no rules requiring it. There's no penalty if you walk on the left side of the hallway. But we naturally congregate to traffic on the right side because that's just how we've been socialized. Thanks to laws that make you drive on the right side of the road. There you go. Within the law, legal and social limits, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do. You want to go be a neuroscientist? Go get the credentials and be a neuroscientist. More power to you. You want to start a lecture series? Go start a lecture series. No one's stopping you from starting a lecture. No one may come, but you can do whatever you want to do. Steve, I will open discussion up in about 15 minutes, and we'll go into the chat side, and everybody will see everything that everybody's talking about. Don't worry, I'm watching chat. I'm seeing what you're saying. But we're going to talk about that. Power of choice and the trigger, liberty. Yeah, I will get to that. I will get more to that. So when it comes to the notion of privacy and what we do within the boundaries of the law, like nobody's watching you when you go and buy books. Nobody's watching the books that you buy. Nobody's pulling your library list. Nobody can. They're not allowed. They're not allowed. With the presumption of privacy, they cannot, and with the protection of the Fifth and Sixth Amendments, they cannot just pull your history of stuff. You have to get a suspicion of wrongdoing and a warrant, and we also know that those are very easy to get, and they can monitor your calls if they think you're involved in whatever But specifically, if they think you're involved with foreign, etc. There's a lot of loose and fuzzy kind of strictures on it, but we're talking generalities. We're not talking specific stuff. What you buy at the grocery store, what you buy at the hardware store, you can literally assemble components for a bomb in your Unabomber hut in the middle of Montana and mail those bombs to people. And nobody knows your buying history. Nobody knows your history. Nobody knows it because you're not being watched 24/7 because we have a presumption of privacy within our own domicile. and that's based in various amendments to the Constitution. That's reinforced with various amendments, including the 14th, 5th, 6th, 1st, 2nd. God, I think there's one more, and I can't remember what it. But they're surrounding that, like your voting history. They can't pull up your specific voting history. They can pull up the fact that you did vote. They can pull up the fact that you voted in this primary or this. Well, in Texas at least, they can pull up the fact that you voted in primary A or primary B, the Republican primary or the Democratic primary. But they can't pull up who you voted for. That's secret because we have a presumption of privacy with our votes, with our and also, by the way, where privacy is not specifically stated, you have a right to privacy in the Constitution. It's also not stated you have a right to vote in the Constitution either. The right to vote is referred to in other amendments that it may not be abridged based on race or whatever. But it doesn't say you have a right to vote. It just assumes the right exists and then that it cannot be abridged. Just like it doesn't say you have a right to speak freely, but it does say the right to free speech cannot be abridged. For what that's worth. So, if we don't have a right to privacy, if I don't have a right in my house to have sex with whomever I want to, a right to privacy, to do whatever I want in my house, there can be laws in the books, and there have been laws in the books because the assumption of privacy didn't exist in legal theory and legal understanding. It didn't exist prior to 1970 something. Well, I guess it did exist prior to 1970 something, but it wasn't applied to all the laws. They could literally pass laws and enforce laws saying that I can't have sex for fun. I can't have sex for non-procreative reasons. I can't have sex with a black woman. I can't have sex with a black man. I can't have sex with 2 black women and 3 black men. I can't have sex with my wife if it's not for procreation. That I can't drink alcohol more than 3 alcoholic beverages in a given night in the privacy of my own home. I think it might be mega pints. And that then goes to the question of arbitrary or despotic controls of liberty. So then the question becomes, can liberty exist without the assumption of privacy? Because if the assumption of privacy is that I'm doing whatever I want to do within the boundaries of the law, I'm not crossing the line into oncoming traffic, which would be against the law. I'm doing whatever I want to do within the boundaries of the law, and as long as I'm not giving suspicion of breaking the law, you don't have any business to observe what it is that I'm doing. You being the government, you, the legal world. You don't have. That's why we don't have red light cameras. That's why we don't have speed cameras. That's in Texas, at least, or in the city of Houston. In other places, we do. Stupid fucking laws. But there's the presumption of, honest to God, I really don't understand the edict against red light cameras. They say that, whatever, but that it's unconstitutional. I don't understand why it's unconstitutional. I haven't looked into it. I just think it's kind of stupid that we can't have red light cameras because fuckers run red lights all the time and it pisses me off. If you don't want your picture taken running a red light, don't run a red light. That's pretty easy. But I guess it goes back to that question of privacy. Like, you're being surveilled in just a regular run-of-the-mill driving down the road. I guess they take pictures of every car that goes through, I guess, or every car that goes through is on camera. But that's the assumption then of privacy, that I'm in my own vehicle. I'm driving my own car, or someone's driving my car. Whatever's happening in my car is private. I may have loaned my car to somebody and you're accusing me of running a red light. Whatever. That's something to think about, something to talk about. That's a different topic. But I don't see how, without privacy, you don't have, without the assumption that within the borders, within the bounds of law, within the bounds of society, within the bounds of my own domicile or my own life in general, assuming that I'm not breaking the law, then I have privacy and I can do what I want to do that's not a violation of law. And assuming that the law cannot ask me questions about my private life and make laws against that. Like now, if I am accused of a crime, then my search histories and my library histories and all that other stuff that can absolutely get pulled up. But because that is also not my information, that's the library's information, that's Google's information, that's Facebook's information, that's everybody else's information. It's not my information. I don't own that. And search warrants can get that stuff pulled up like that, and or they can just ask nicely, and maybe the companies hand it to them without a search warrant. Sell or share it with anyone. Age or digital age, Google can share. That's absolutely that, and that's 100% correct. Google can share that information because that's Google's information. We don't own that information, and in Europe, they don't have any constitutions that give them the right that protect their rights to privacy. But in Europe, the information that companies have is still considered to be your personal information, and Google doesn't have the same rights to sell your personal information in Europe that Google has to sell your personal information in America, because in America, even though we are considered to have a right to privacy based on our Constitution, that information is assumed that we have given it to another company, to another individual, by act of participating in the commerce with their site. It says it right there, cookies will track your information, whatever, do you agree? You can not agree and choose not to do it, but then you can't participate in, I mean, that's the agreement. You may be willingly handing it over, but the alternative is nothing. You may be willingly handing that over and giving you the impression that it's your choice to do it, but the alternative choice is nothing. You don't get to Google. You can DuckDuckGo or Yahoo or I don't know, Bing, I guess, if you live under a rock, or Ask Jeeves or whatever. But there you go. I mean, I can't find my way back to liberty and privacy can exist separately from each other. And if you take away the right to privacy, you're literally taking away people's liberty to live their lives free from scrutiny. Because you open the door then, because where there's a strong wall between the public world and the private world, when you tear down that door of privacy, well, now it opens up a whole lot of things that they can now come in and say, you can do this, or you can't do that, or we can look at this, or we can do this, and if you don't have a right to privacy, if you don't have a basic right to privacy in your life, then that puts into question a tremendous number of things that we assume we can do. I mean, hell, when Ted Cruz was still a lawyer, Solicitor General, I think, in the state of Texas, he made the argument that we don't have the right we don't have a right to masturbate. Ted Cruz has his name on an argument, and the argument had something to do with dildos or something like that. I'm not sure what exactly the details were, but his argument was that the people of Texas do not have a right to masturbation. So we don't have a right to buy dildos. This is true. This is a thing that Ted Cruz did in the state of Texas when he was the Solicitor General of the state of Texas. That piece of shit put his name on an argument arguing that, and even now, God, I don't know if this is a fact, I don't know if this is still true, but there was a point in time when uh, porn videos in the state of Texas had to be labeled for education purposes only because you couldn't have porn as entertainment, apparently, in the state of Texas. This is how fucked up things can be if you don't have a presumption of privacy. And I don't know if that's still true because I don't know if anybody actually buys porn anymore. Um, but there you go. Let's so that I I don't know how to come back from the idea that liberty and privacy are linked. If anybody's got ideas, we'll open up the chat now. I'm going to open up the discussion forum. There goes the screen. Can liberty coexist with privacy, or can they live on their own? Let me move chat up one more. Right there. Yeah. Let me scooch it down just a little bit, I suppose. There we go. So let's scroll down chat real quick. We have choices of whatever mandate you want, choice by choice, having to do with liberty. Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly right. You can choose to do whatever you want to do within the bounds of the law. You can't do whatever you want to do. We don't get to do whatever we want to do. We've never been able to do whatever we want to do. As soon as you start associating with another person, the only time you can do whatever you want to do is if you live in isolation by yourself. If you live in isolation by yourself, there's no good, there's no evil, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's only self-preservation and survival. And that's it. As soon as you add a second person or several more people, then you start having the questions of morality and good and evil. This is good to do, this is bad to do, this is lawful, this is unlawful, this is right, this is wrong, because the people have to, and there's a lot of commonality between societies, but I would argue, and I've made this argument with Lisa, and I'll make this argument again and again, that if you're living by yourself, then there's no right and wrong, there's no good and evil, because it's just you. We can talk about the natural order of things, whatever, but there's if it's just you, there's nothing else. But between societies, there's things that become pretty standard and pretty common because we as people, we agree on certain things pretty much on a fundamental level, like no murder, no adultery, most places, no adultery. Uh, where there are gods, they say no gods before me, no false idols. Where there's property, it's no coveting your neighbor's property. Don't lie to each other. I mean, you can basically go down the Ten Commandments and talk about, these are pretty common among, most of these are pretty common among societies. So once you put 2 or 3 or 4 people together, social norms become pretty easy and pretty standard. You may have different definitions of what adultery is, or different definitions of idolatry, or different definitions of murder, of piles and piles and piles of qualifications on what constitutes a murder versus what constitutes a mercy killing versus what constitutes self-defense, all of that stuff. And those are, legal hair splitting. There's probably not a whole lot of social compacts that say you can't kill anything ever because you got to eat, right? So I've made this argument in the past, and I'll make it again, I'm sure, that good and evil and all that stuff, that's kind of social constructs. And we agree to those social constructs. I'm going to move that up a little bit. We agree to these social constructs because that makes societies work. But these social constructs can also change over time. They can change over time, and the understanding of these social constructs can change over time. And that is where you get your limits to liberty, like immediate limits to liberty. As soon as a second person comes in, they're like, don't murder me. I'm like, okay, well, you've now limited my liberties. The first thing you did is tell me not to murder you. You're a dick. And then hit him with a rock. And now, Cain and Abel are a thing. And then, Cain killed Abel. And then Cain's like, I didn't do it. And you're like, oh, No lying. You're not supposed to lie to me either. See? Now, just like that. You've limited his liberty twice. 2 times. In 2 sentences, you've limited his liberty. He can't murder people anymore, and he can't lie about murdering people anymore. Like, bam. Like, of course you want to lie about murdering. You tell people you're not going to lie. Like, I don't want to lie. Nobody wants to lie, but you're going to do it, especially after you murdered somebody or made them leave chat. I'm not sure what the proper terminology is on social media. I'm just a normal person, so I'm going to say murder. Um, if you murder, that's the first thing you want to do. Like, oh no, I didn't do that. Unless you're a crazy person, they're like, yeah, I killed that guy and that guy and that guy over there too. You know, yeah, you haven't gotten coffee lately, have you? Because I killed the coffee maker too. Ah, no. You see, the first thing you do is you hide that and you try to, and see, that's against the rules. Society doesn't want people to lie about stuff. I mean, I don't know if you're a murderer. I probably want you to tell me before we sit down and have a couple of drinks. I mean, that would probably be a good thing for you to tell me. So I can get behind the don't lie about murder. Don't lie in general. Uh, Societal rules. That's not a legal rule unless you're under oath. The law says you're not allowed to lie to officials. You can lie to each other all the time unless it's a contractual thing. But then you've entered into a contractual covenant to tell the truth to each other. But it's not against the law to lie. I could tell you I'm 8 feet tall. That's a bald faced lie. But I mean, Jesus Christ, on dating apps, people lie all the time. Like, oh no, I'm a good person. No, you're not. you're on a dating app. You're not a good person. I kid. Lisa's on dating apps. People on dating apps are decent people. Anyway, back to chat. Let's read more. With the digital age, yep, Google can sell and share information with anyone, and they do. They do. It is a powerful asset and a powerful algorithm. I looked up uh, a bug trapper thing. We have a fly thing going on in the kitchen because we have guinea pigs. So the guinea pigs are making flies happen in their poop. Anyway, we have fruit flies. So I looked up a thing for fruit flies, and damn if the Amazon algorithm and the Amazon cookie wasn't picked up by Facebook and YouTube and TikTok. And now I'm getting advertisements for all kinds of mosquito control and fly control. That shit's all over the place. Suspicion of breaking the law. Anybody can be. That's not entirely true. It depends on the jurisdiction. It depends on the crime. There are relatively, depends on the crime and it depends on the criminal. There are relatively stringent. Yeah, I mean, you can't just get a warrant for whatever. But when it comes to like traffic stops and stuff like that, the Supreme Court over the years have been pretty lenient when it comes to cops searching cars or DWI tests or stuff like that because cops try to be pretty expansive with what they can look for and what they can do, and that's not 100% blanket statement, but when they come up to your car and they flash the light inside the car, they're looking for something. Or they're looking to see if there's anything interesting, and that's part of the process. Make sure there's nothing dangerous in the car. Make sure there's nothing. But while they see if there's anything dangerous, they can also look and see if there's anything interesting, like empty beer bottles or something like that. In my case, it would always be an open whiskey bottle because I go from tastings, leave the distillery, go to tastings, and do stuff like that. I almost always have an open bottle in my car when I'm heading home from one of these events. But if it's in a package and it's in the back, I make sure the box is closed. So if I do get pulled over and the cop comes up and shines his light in the window, he won't be all like, "You're not allowed to have open packages in your car. Out of the car, mister." And do all the gymnastics on the side of the road and shit like that. They could absolutely drag me out of the car if they see an open bottle in the back of the car, which is why I do make every effort to make those be completely undetectable and completely unseen, and in the trunk, in the back of my hatchback, so that they can't be visible, so they can't be seen. I'm not an idiot. Well, I'm not a complete idiot. But if the right to privacy is eviscerated, if we don't, if the idea of the right to privacy is gone, then in a traffic stop they could absolutely ask you to open up your trunk, ask you to um, step out of the car and take a look inside the car. They could absolutely do that, because at that point you're under suspicion of crime, or you have committed a crime. Presumably, they pulled you over because you're speeding, or you didn't use your tail light, or whatever. Your registration's expired. So in the process of that, they can then, you don't have any privacy of what's in your car. That's your property, but you are now involved in an active investigation, and under suspicion. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just assuming, theoretically, as we expound out on this, uh, which means your right to have your liberty to move freely comes into question, especially if you're suspected of traveling across state lines to get an abortion. The state of Texas has already said that they're going to do they're looking at measures to prevent women from leaving the state to have an abortion. They're looking at measures. Arizona had passed laws in the past saying that you had to be able to prove your citizenship if requested, specifically targeting Latino minorities who are most likely to be immigrants or illegal immigrants uh, from Mexico or points south. So, we don't have to show our papers, our citizenship papers, to the local police. We are supposed to show our identification if asked in the normal course of an investigation. In the normal course of an investigation, not just them coming up to you randomly and saying, "Show me your identification," because we have an assumption of privacy from the state, from the municipal law enforcement. We have an assumption of privacy. But without an assumption of privacy, even with your own identification, they can, theoretically, I suppose, they can come up to you and ask you to identify yourself. Show me your papers. Show me your identification. Um, that's not off the table. That's not out of the question. And that was deemed to be unconstitutional in the state of Arizona. I think it was Arizona. It might have been New Mexico. I'm pretty sure it was Arizona. That was deemed to be unconstitutional in Arizona because it was targeted at a minority group. So there was disparate impact of the law. So it was unconstitutional based on the Equal Protection Clause of the 13th Amendment. But if the law is not, if the law is passed in a way, if a new law is passed to prevent people from, or not to prevent people, but to require people to show identification at any time, any person to show identification at any time, but not being passed in a way that it targets a minority, then there's nothing preventing that. If the notion of privacy is out the door, and that impacts our liberty, I don't see how liberty and privacy can be separated. I don't see how that works, and it's ironic to me because it's the people who are saying liberty, 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 liberty. Those are the people saying privacy doesn't exist. It's not in the Constitution. Blah 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 blah. But the first time you go down to Academy and say, "Hey, I need to get the names of everybody who's bought a gun in the last 5 years so that we can be able to track the gun owners in our community." Well, now that's an infringement on privacy. But privacy doesn't exist. in the Constitution, according to the same people who would say this. And I don't know, and maybe it's just because my lizard brain doesn't know how to work that way. I don't know how to reconcile those two things. I don't know how liberty continues to be a thing without the assumption of privacy. Even if our Constitution says what it says, they don't have the freedom of speech amendments in Europe. They don't have privacy clauses in amendments in Europe. They don't have a right to vote. They don't have equal protection clauses in Europe. But they have all this shit in Europe. They have privacy and they have liberty and they have all this shit in Europe. I mean, hell, Ukraine is holding off the second largest army in the world, and they don't have a Second Amendment. But we have all of our amendments and all of our freedoms and all of our liberties, and we are voluntarily eroding them. I don't get it. I don't understand how these two things work independently. I don't know how you maintain liberty without privacy, and I don't know how you maintain privacy without liberty. I don't know how to do that. And I still haven't figured it out. I dislike Cruz for many reasons, but you like many of his arguments. I consider Ted Cruz to be vile, not because necessarily of his. He doesn't believe in anything, and I consider that to be vile. I consider his arguments to be vile. I consider his duplicity to be vile. I consider his continuous, constant lying to be vile. I consider his inability to identify reality to be vile. I consider just everything about him. If he was in California, he's in Texas, right? If he was in California, he would be Dianne Feinstein. He would be a young Dianne Feinstein. And he would be a senator in California, and he would be just as vile, but the opportunity in California would have been liberal versus the opportunity in Texas, which was not. It was conservative. And he's not even conservative anymore. He's just this neo-libertarian roach of a human being, and he's just vile. And he's the kind of person, and this is a unique breed of human being. He's the kind of person who thinks that he can make an argument to make anything true. And we all know this type of person. We know this type of person. We went to college with this type of person. We went to high school with this type of person who could look at you straight in the face and say, I can make an argument that 2 + 2 = 97. Wouldn't you agree that? And he'll start going down the path. And he'll lead you down this road of specious language and 12 degrees off, 12 degrees off, 12 degrees off, 12 degrees off, until next thing you know, you're in foreign territory completely. And he say, well, you've agreed with the last 4 things. Well, this next thing is based on that thing, and you should agree with that too, based on what you've already agreed to. So naturally, 2 + 2 = 90. And he's just completely, he's a vile human being. And if he was in California, he would be using those same tools and that same logic and that same reasoning on the other side. He's not an idiot. And that's part of the problem, is that he's smart enough, he's clever enough to be able to to formulate these Euclidean proofs that lead you down the road to 2 plus 2 equals 97. But like each one has this like nugget of reality and a nugget of bullshit. And he like veers you into the bullshit lane a little bit at a time until next thing you know, he said, and that's why private companies should deliver power to people instead of public utilities. And you're like, but then you have rolling blackouts during the coldest time of the year. Why does that make sense? He's like, well, you agreed to it. And it's like that he's a vile individual. Just an individual, and that's probably not fair. That is fair. He's a vile individual. But like I don't know if his kids love him. I don't know if his wife loves him. I'm sure he has friends who like him somewhere. I mean, none of his colleagues like him. He's an opportunistic, spineless, mushy, jello-y pile of expedient, just opportunism. That's it. That's all he is. I don't really think he believes in anything. I think he makes an argument for whatever he thinks will win, and he can make good arguments. It would be better if they were based in reality and truth, but he can make good arguments. He's just he doesn't. I don't know what to tell you. He's and that's not. Did I just lose my mic? Yeah, no, I got my mic on. Good. And that's policy decisions, policy questions aside. That's just a basic human thing, and it used to be like there used to be a time when there were politicians on the left and politicians on the right, and the politicians on the left and the politicians on the right agreed with the problem and disagreed with how to solve the problem. But now you have politicians on the left saying that something's a problem, and politicians on the right saying, but immigrants! And it's like, y'all don't even agree that there's a problem. There's like, it's just not true. And then I don't want to make this about Ted Cruz because he's just a vile individual. Nothing good comes from talking about that guy. But I really do believe that if his dad, who fled, when his dad fled Cuba and went to Canada, if little Teddy was born in Canada, which he was, after Teddy was born in Canada, if they had come to instead of coming to Texas, if they had come to New York or Vermont or California or Washington State, Oregon, if they had come to almost anywhere else in the country other than Texas, he would have grown up to be a completely different individual. Because in the 90s, the Democratic Party abandoned Texas. Texas was, Ann Richards was the last Democratic governor. They had won the House, won the Senate. They were gerrymandering the shit out of congressional districts and making sure that they were going to protect their majority and expand it. And the Democratic Party just abandoned the state. And when he was growing up through those formidable years and seeing where the political winds were blowing in Texas, and he put out his finger and he said, I'm going to do that. And he became a white conservative. He adopted the name Ted. He became a white conservative male, and that's the history of that particular spineless slug. He's never believed in a thing in his life. He's I can understand that because I can make arguments on both sides of a topic too. I can't make arguments on both sides of liberty versus privacy because I don't see how they're not intertwined. I don't understand how they're not intertwined. I guess you can make the argument that if privacy is, if what you do if privacy is not assumed, if you're not assumed to have privacy, and you're not breaking the law, then you have nothing to worry about. We've heard that before, right? If you're not breaking the law, you have nothing to worry about because you still have protection from search and seizure if you're not breaking the law, et cetera, et cetera. But if the assumption of privacy doesn't exist and you're breaking the law within your own home, I mean, they can literally kick down your door and arrest you for sodomy, which happened in the state of Texas. People were arrested for the crime of sodomy being committed in a bedroom, which is, sex that other than procreation. In this particular case, it was gay sex for other than procreation. But let's continue down this path. If the only way that anybody knew what was going on behind closed doors was because somebody said something to somebody tipped off law enforcement. But law enforcement was then allowed to, and they obviously knew because they broke in while they were having sex. But let's ponder this out for just a moment longer. If if the assumption is then you don't have privacy anymore, what you do in your own home is subject to the law, and the law says you cannot have same-sex relationships. You can't be how I mean, there were laws in the book saying you can't be gay, you can't be married, a homosexual marriage, you can't be married to the same sex. But let's say they go down the road and say, you can't live together as a non-married couple, and only the only couples who are married can be male female. You can only have heterosexual marriage because they've talked about rolling back the constitutionality of gay marriage too. So let's explore this idea. Then what happens if you're driving down the road with your buddy or your roommate? Y'all are carpooling to work. You get pulled over. Shines a light in the car, or I guess it wouldn't shine a light in the car because you're carpooling to work. Looks in the car, says, "Who's that?" He says, "He's just my coworker. We're heading to work together. But y'all both have a ring." He says, "Okay, I need you to get out of the car." And she, "Who's your wife? Why are you wearing a ring?" And they can interrogate you. And now what you've done in the privacy of your own home, which is have a committed relationship with another man, you are now subject to arrest because you were pulled over. And in the course of an investigation, what you've done behind closed doors has been brought out into public. And now you don't have a right to privacy, so they can outlaw that. And now you're get a misdemeanor citation or even a felony citation, whatever it would be, for driving to work with a man. You would have to. I mean, you'd almost have to have a woman in the car, right? Like the Three's Company situation. I mean, forget Three's Company. This is Saudi Arabia having. I mean, that's cuckoo bird crazy, like that. But no, see, that eviscerates the notion of liberty. Then you don't have freedom of movement. You don't have freedom from despotic or arbitrary control. You don't. I mean, that defeats the notion of liberty right there. Unless the notion of liberty is that only some people should have liberty, and then I don't have anything to worry about. I'm literally allowed to do and say and go and be whomever I want to be because I'm the right kind of person. So that's probably problematic in society. Yeah. So I don't see how I don't see how I don't see how liberty and privacy do not coexist. I don't see how liberty and privacy can possibly exist without each other. Liberty is tied at the hip to privacy. I and privacy is, liberty is what our Constitution is supposed to protect in general. We have certain unalienable rights that are granted to us by our Creator. Among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And privacy is one of those rights that's enshrined in our Constitution in at least 4 places in the fourth, fifth, sixth, 14th, and arguably First and Second Amendments too. So maybe 6 places. Even if it's not explicit, it says quite plainly what you do in the privacy of your own home, what you do in the privacy of your daily life, of your pursuit of happiness, is none of our business. As long as you're not breaking the law. And here are the laws. But, the laws can't extend into your private life. You can't enforce a law that requires them to see what you're doing behind closed doors because you have security within your own home and your own life. Yeah. So there you go. We'll close this out. We'll close out the discussion and we'll wrap up the show. This has been a fun talk. We have been talking about liberty requiring privacy, and it's been fun. I've enjoyed this. This is fun. This is a fun topic to think about. It's a fun topic to discuss. A fun topic to expound upon. Because it's complicated. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to our idea of our Americanness that is embedded in and vetted with the notion of our own privacy. And we sacrifice our privacy all the damn time. But we sacrifice our privacy to other individuals and companies. We don't sacrifice our privacy to the federal government or the state government or the local government. We are happy to tell Google who we're doing what with and where they're doing it. But we're not comfortable with telling the feds or the state or the city or anybody else. And for good reason, I guess. It's none of their damn business. It's none of their business. It's none of Google's business either, but Google's curious because Google wants to sell us shit. So does Amazon, so does Yahoo, and not Yahoo, YouTube's and everybody. They all want to sell us shit. So they want to know. So we tell them and we make their algorithms better constantly. But we don't want the federal government to know because that could impact our liberties. So we maintain our privacy from the federal government to maintain our liberty, which is why I don't think the liberty and privacy can be severed. If you give up privacy, you naturally give up liberty. And I'm not sure there's I don't know I don't know how to formulate an argument on the other side of that liberty can exist without privacy. If the only way liberty exists without privacy is if you're in a preferred or privileged group that gets liberty where others don't. That's it. That's the only, and that's not liberty. That's not true liberty. That's well, we know what that is. That's a segregated society. That's apartheid. That's Jim Crow. That's a world that we shouldn't want to go back to. That we should be very wary to go back to. The good old days weren't always so good. So that said, I'm gonna wrap. I'm gonna wrap this up. This has been fun. I've enjoyed this, but I'm gonna wrap because I have a very early morning and a very long day tomorrow. So I'm going to call it a night. Steve, I appreciate you coming and joining me. Safety Doc, I appreciate you coming to join. Anybody else? No, I think that's all the names I see. I may have missed one. I don't have my glasses on. But there you go. I am the Old Humble Guy. Update for the rest of the week, real fast. Tomorrow night, trivia. Friday night, the Don May Project returns both to the distillery and this forum right here. We have our Friday night live here on the Old Humble Distilling Company's YouTube channel. Saturday, I am going to the Texas Whiskey Fest, and I will give a report from the Texas Whiskey Fest next week. We'll talk about the state of Texas whiskey and the state of Texas distilleries, because I will hopefully learn a lot of fun information for next Wednesday's show. Maybe we'll talk about liberty and privacy again. Maybe it'll come up again in the next 4 or 5 days. Who knows? We'll see. We are tantalizingly close to 450 subs, or 550 subs rather, gets us, where's my, there it is, right there, 550 subs gets us a whiskey giveaway. So we are tantalizingly close. We're at 548. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button and the notification bell and do all that shit. And meanwhile, I'll see y'all back in just under 22 hours. Cheers and good.